Welcome back. Let's continue ganging news-wise. Now, it's been a week heavy in politics. The last few days, President Uhuru Kenyatta was in Kisii, and the Maraga question. I mean, questions are being raised. Why was the Chief Justice there? And more precisely, uko kwa roadside rallies, what was he doing there? I've seen pictures. That was a topic of discussion in the Senate. James Orengo, the minority leader and senior counsel, saying it's one of those things that are shameful. Is it?
The CJ was not kwa gari yake open hapo anakaa anahutubia wananchi the same way the president, the deputy president and Raila Odinga were doing it. He was there as a resident of that town. Kama angevaa t-shirt na jeans aingie katikati ya watu, you would not have noticed him. So I don't think it should be a big deal. I mean, him being there or not being there did not make any difference in that meeting.
Jamila,
yes,
this is the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya.
I don't think it's an issue.
Perception is very key. Actually, perception may end up being everything. In this particular case, he didn't say anything along those rallies or kwa barabara, but there's a feeling that probably him and the executive iko kitu.
I think
there is. Go first.
No, I think that the whole thing has to be understood in the context of our history. There has always been suspicion that the biggest threat to the judiciary is the executive, and therefore whenever he's seen there is that risk, obviously. I just think that our politics has become extremely hypocritical, that we don't seem to know what is right and what is wrong. We become extremely whimsical. When something happens, we will make noise today and tomorrow if someone is in a different place, because we are in a very confused state right now. Our politics is confused. We don't know who is in the opposition, who is in government. Our institutions are confused. We don't know who is subservient to who. We have seen many other people, including speakers of parliament, being at rallies and all manner of places. So
even CS as well.
So I think there is a sense in which we need to step back as a country and then ask ourselves fundamental question: what are we really doing? What is right? What is wrong? Because if we are going to wake up and start talking about Maraga, and I think that conversation ought to happen, then we will actually need to talk about who is in government, who is not. We'll need to talk about what are speakers of parliament supposed to do, what are they not supposed to do. We haven't had that conversation.
I've not seen any Chief Justice attend such rallies, even from the days of Chunga. I've not seen.
I'll start from where Joe left it, and he spoke of tradition. There is that tradition right through our history, where when the president is coming to your region and you are a government official, you'll be present. But Maraga's situation is unique, and I want to draw this link here. Maraga comes from the background of being one of 4 judges that nullified the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Maraga happens also to be the president of the Supreme Court and the head of the judiciary in this country. Now, one key thing that must be accepted, and it takes time to actually accept, is although the principle in government is that of separation of powers, there is no absolute separation of those powers. Those institutions still have linkages. The judiciary with the legislature with the executive and the judiciary. There are all these places. Only the other day, we had Maraga complaining about not having money in the judiciary. The budget has not been given. That's because the executive and the working together with the legislature has the power and ability to actually switch off the taps just to make a point. Same to the judiciary holding the other 2 institutions in difficult places. So Maraga is working, in my view, also with the burden of managing the relations between him as the head of the judiciary and Uhuru, the head of the executive, the person whose election he nullified very sensationally only 2 years ago.
Here's the other interesting thing also about the timing of what happened in Kisii. Right after the anti-corruption conference that we had, where the judiciary was seriously lambasted, and a lot of the leaders were saying that is where the weak link is with the fight against corruption. And then what did we see a few weeks after that? We saw him making some significant changes in the judiciary, including in the courts that handle corruption cases, in the Economic Crimes Division. And a lot of people said, well, it might be routine, but it was very interesting that it happened right after all of those complaints that people were saying he's probably succumbing to pressure that was being bombarded on him, from all sides. I mean, all politicians on this one were speaking in one voice. Those in ODM, everybody, those in Jubilee, the president, Raila Odinga, everyone was putting this pressure. And then these changes happen. So some people were saying, well, could this be linked to that pressure? Was he caving in? And then now we see this trip here.
Probably
there's timing.
Put it more plainly. Probably he's the last person you would have expected to see in that function.
Absolutely.
But also,
even if it was his hometown, he could easily have.
How could you feature honestly?
No,
he was right
could
there.
easily have, welcomed the president, the deputy president, and Raila Odinga, who's the leader of ODM, as.
What is not acceptable, Yvonne, what Maraga did that is absolutely not acceptable is to stand
right next to
on the roadside.
Right.
When politicians are making those stops. Yeah. That is no longer an official function. You know very well, all drive-bys are political.
Absolutely.
But if he had turned up at whatever...
The formal function.
Yes.
Take your seat decently like the Chief Justice of the Republic, in the presence of the President, and leave that function. Leave the roadside events to politicians. I think that image will haunt him for a long while. It didn't look good seeing his head popping out from the crowd. He actually came out of his car to listen to them. It looked really, really bad.
Talking about popping, there's also another issue that was popping. Actually has continued to pop. Is there a referendum or there won't be? And if there will be, what will it be about? Look, the deputy president on Sunday was in Kakamega, and away from what he said at the
Chatham House, yes,
he was saying something more interesting in Kakamega. Take a listen.
Ewa siasa nyingi za bure, hakuna shortage ya positions katika Kenya, iko shortage ya jobs for young people. That is where the shortage is. Musitueleze tena ati tuwe na mjadala mwingine, tuwe na siasa ingine, tuwe na mambo mengine ya kuongea ati nani atapata cheo gani, nani itaendelea siasa upande gani. Wananchi wa Kenya wanataka kujua mambo yao ya maendeleo ya maji na stima na maji na hospitali na watoto kwenda shuleni. Hiyo ndio Wakenya wanataka.
Yes.
I wanted to speak before you.
Okay. I'll toss a coin. Now, as I toss that coin, the question is, this issue that the deputy president is raising sounds extremely opposite to this narrative about inclusivity and expanding the executive to make sure that every region feels included.
Please go ahead.
I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, Francis, constitution making is a political process. And what we are seeing from the deputy president there is an attempt to do two things at the same time. Basically, he's throwing one stone to kill two birds at the same time. One, he's been stating what he wants about the new constitution. And two, he's also stating what he doesn't want to see, what he'll oppose. Clearly, from those remarks, he is opposed to any suggestions of expanding the executive. What does that mean? It means he'll also resist any attempts to push for a parliamentary system of government. Remember, there was supposed to be, as per some of the proposals we are seeing, a prime minister and deputy prime ministers, a president, a deputy president. Because the moment we go that route of the parliamentary system without abolishing the presidency, the executive will be expanded. And what we are seeing there is the DP saying, no, I don't want that route. He previously stated what he wants, which is status quo largely, a strong presidency,
a strong deputy president,
a strong deputy president,
and a strong opposition.
And a strong opposition. Basically, go back to where we were before. And that was the Moi era, because really we had all those structures. There was a leader of official opposition, and there was a strong vice president who also acted as
leader of government
business. One more thing about what Ruto is doing there. He's also playing politics. He's trying to start appealing to the masses there. It's about you. It's about your jobs. It's about the employment of your sons and daughters. It's not about them. So he's already playing the populist card, so as to position himself.
But it's interesting. Jamila, you go first.
No, Joe, please go first.
No, Jamila, you can't be sitting.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll go for something. Lina spoke about exactly what Ruto is rooting for. But then what he wants is exactly opposite from what Raila Odinga wants, because he wants now what you spoke about, a president, a prime minister, deputy presidents, and maybe deputy prime minister, which is exactly opposite of what the DP has said. But then this weekend, the two of them actually agreed on something. Remember when he was speaking at Chatham House, Ruto had said that he would like cabinet secretaries to attend parliament at least once a week to talk about issues that come up.
Be ex-official
members of parliament. And then Raila says that he would like the cabinet secretaries to sit in parliament as part of the constitutional reforms. In fact, he has no problem about members of parliament being cabinet secretaries. So we are seeing kuna kakitu wamekubaliana, but still the two of them have totally different ideas.
Talking about kakitu, there's also something I want you to listen to when the former Prime Minister met a delegation from the Indian business community. And he said something very interesting about a train.
Future. We want to change this country. And the change movement is on. The train has left the station. And anybody who does not want to move with it will be left behind. This country, this year, is going to be a year of change in our country. We want to look at our governance structure and see what needs to be rectified, what needs to be corrected. And if you want to stand in the way of change, change is going to change you. So you have a choice either to be with us or not to be with us. This is a democracy.
Joe, change is here. A train has left. If you stand in the way, utapitwa na wewe. It's more or less like the teams, the yes team and the no teams are slowly forming.
Which is interesting, because that presupposes that the idea of whether or not we have a referendum is settled, that we are actually beyond that point where we are arguing about whether we will have a referendum or not, which is a significant development, because remember there was a time when we didn't seem to be quite there. In fact, the deputy president, when he was speaking at Chatham, he even mentioned this and asked about the boundaries review and the census and this one, and said, do we really need to do these things? Are we likely to afford it? But here we have seen him giving his recommendations. I think there is a dawning that is happening within the political class that somehow this referendum thing is going to happen, which is interesting, because if you look at how Raila Odinga is speaking, what does he know that we do not know? Because he seems to be saying this thing is inevitable. It reminds one of that tsunami thing he once talked about, or there's a certain river also that he talks about. I think the river Nile that inevitably gets to the Mediterranean at some point. But here is the thing. I think that what we are seeing right now are the different positions beginning to coalesce, where you can begin to see who is going to be saying what. So yes, we will most likely have a referendum. The question is going to be who is going to stand. And when these guys go out there, they are basically going to be saying, this is what our position is, this is what we want, this is what we do not want. And Raila Odinga basically just saying, we have to change the structure of government, and if you don't want that,
In fact, in Kisii,
you can guess who
in
is speaking
Kisii yesterday, it was interesting watching the body language. The president was there, the deputy president was there, and Raila was there. And Ruto welcomed Raila to speak, and then he was lauding the reconciliation talks. And in fact, it looked like the two were bosom buddies. And then Raila comes on to speak, and he says the handshake is working, and Kenyans should be working together, maendeleo. In fact, he went as far as saying nurses hakuna kulipwa, no, won't pay, can't pay, kusaba kuna hela. And then the president comes and says the exact same thing that Raila said about nurses not getting paid, saying that, if everyone wants to ongezewa mshahara, kila mwaka, what's going to happen to development projects in the country?
Yvonne, I want you to respond to what Frederick Okango is asking. Expanding the executive so that you can include other tribes is a lie. The true inclusivity is the equitable share of the resources and services, and adopting the word as a unit of development.
That's exactly what I said about this issue last week. Inclusivity is when everybody feels like they can belong, when everyone feels they have equal access to opportunities, to jobs, when everyone, no matter which corner of the country, can go to hospital and get the same level of care and quality of care as they would in any part of this country. Those are the real issues we need to be talking about. Again, just from what I said last week, Kenyans, this, in Kiswahili mnasema mchakato, is not from the people. It is from up here. And that is all I have to say on this issue. That is why they are... Yeah, remember even Deputy President Ruto said there will be no referendum. He said, in fact, what they're coming to do is they're coming... In fact, to use the counties. He said, they're coming after your counties. There would be no referendum, he said. Then... Now we're changing tune. Now he goes to Chatham House. Then he comes back, and then there's Raila. So, I mean, for me...
Surprise, those people you're talking about will soon start saying... Kama Ruto amesema, kama Raila amesoma, hakuna haja kusoma hiyo referendum question, tuambiwe tu tupige wapi. So there's a sense in which sometimes the whole thing of the people in our context
I guess I'm idealistic. I am idealistic. I'm one day hoping that this will be driven by...
And you know, the real conversation is yet to start, because once the proposals are on the table, then people will be asking questions. Because even if you're expanding the executive, you're expanding to accommodate how many more? You're expanding to accommodate 5. By my count, it should be 5. If you have a deputy president and then prime minister and 2 deputy prime ministers. So who are these 5? That'll be the next question.
You talk about the big 5.
Yeah, the big 5. And you ask this question to Yvonne. There's that issue about big tribes having this conversation. It's about them accommodating each other, not feeling left out. So once the proposal is out, it will not be about the big 5. The conversation will be heard across 41, 42, and now we have the Makondes as well. So they'll also ask, okay, if it's about expanding the table for the big boys, then how do we all come in?
And even then, Makonde being in cabinet, how does that make them feel included?
We should have 41 deputy presidents.
Which is an impossibility. And
or 41 presidents for that
invites,
matter.
That invites the question, the constitutional movement, is there one?
We keep waiting
the deputy
for
president asked that at Chatham House.
Look,
I don't know
this conversation, let's not forget how it all started. It all started on March 9th.
Yes.
2018.
1 year to be soon to be 1
1
year.
year soon. On the steps of Harambee House. A meeting that none of us knew about. Even our investigative journalists did not get it. Nobody knew about. I hear the deputy president and the running mate of Raila Odinga did not know what's going on. So this conversation all revolves around Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. That is why it's what they say. And I think you see the deputy president changing his positions because he was hitting a wall. He was having a different conversation from his boss when he kept saying, there'll be no referendum, give us time to work with...
So the train has left the station.
Now
right?
another one is another statement from the leader of opposition, Odinga, is the train has left the station. If you're not in it, you'll be left by it. And you now see him also moving, gravitating towards the center to find out what is it that these two are working towards.
There's something
And
that
I
he
think
said.
the entire country is in that position.
There's something that Raila said yesterday, and I'm going to quote it. He said, "The building bridges is a result of lengthy discussions between me and Uhuru Kenyatta. Both of us had been sworn in as president." He's talking about March 9th. And he says, "However, when we discussed the matter, we said we cannot have two presidents in a country. But the only way for one of us to step down was to agree on how to bring changes to the country. We asked ourselves what the issues are. We put them on the table, and it was on that basis that we agreed I step aside on condition that we do all these things together."
Including that referendum.
Including that referendum. So tuko pamoja paka mwisho.
Okay, talking about kwa pamoja, the president was still issuing threats to his CSS. He said something interesting yet again in Kisii on the whole question of fighting corruption.
Ufisadi hauna kabila. Matiangi akiiba haji kuja kwako nyumbani ati mukule matoke na mandizi na yeye. Si ni kweli? Akiiba siyo ni mzigo wake. Uhuru akiiba haendi Ishaweri kugawia watu. Si ni Uhuru ameiba? Si Uhuru achukue msalaba yake?
Gashuri.
Yes.
I didn't have to say this.
Please do.
After the president spoke, that was yesterday, and we had a scandal, a new one just lipukad on our faces in Samburu County. I think one of the poorest counties in this country. 2 billion shillings. And county officials, including the governor, awarded themselves tenders, wakaunda makampuni that never did any work. In fact, the investigation that was done by EACC, walikwenda kwenye ground kule Samburu kuangalia if any of these projects that were paid for had been implemented. There is absolutely nothing. 2 billion shillings, Gashuri. Tunaenda wapi?
This fight against corruption, sometimes you listen to people and they tell you,
kukula.
For me, I wondered, Kwani County kona pesa ngapi? Because you know when I was watching that story from Gashuri, I thought he was actually making up some of the numbers because it was horrifying. I mean, you look at that litany of all manner of things, and
the numbers are not just numbing; they are knowing. I mean, I'm tempted to respond in the local language.
In Kimasai.
Yeah, in Kimasai.
Wow. We need to go now. It's time